Welcome everyone. It's lovely to have so many people and many others who send their apologies to commemorate, celebrate the legacy of Gavin Bolton. And although I haven't met him in person just once, um, his work has had a great impact on myself and also many others in Hungary as well. And I know it's an international thing. Lots of us have had influences from Gavin. So we thought at Side B, which is myself, David Davis, Saushi, Kostas from Greece, and Chris Cooper, that it would be really nice to sort of bring together people and just share our memories, share those influences that we had from Gavin and that were important for us. Those of you who registered, some of you said you would be happy to share something from Gavin, a memory, a piece of writing, an idea that has shaped your practice. And so I have a list of people, but I invite you all to join in. We'll just give every person just 5 minutes to share something, and I'll just try to keep that time, of course, not very strictly, but just to keep the event rolling and have as many thoughts and memories and influences shared here as possible. So I'll just start with that, and if you don't mind, Cecily, I would really like to start with you, and then Davis after you, as students of Gavin who are here and who worked with him for a long time. It would be really nice to hear from you to kick us off. So, Cecily, can you share something about your
Yeah,
work with Gavin,
thank you.
please?
Well, basically, if it wasn't for Gavin Bolton, I would have no career, no practice. I don't know what I would be doing, but I certainly would not have had the lifetime almost of working in drama. I was lucky enough to meet him at a kind of crucial point where I was an English teacher, but doing a bit, I had a little, been to a few courses in drama, which were mostly games and exercises. So when Gavin came to see whether I would pass this little diploma, um, I showed him, I didn't have a class myself. I borrowed a bunch of kids and I took them through every single exercise and game that I had ever learned. And Gavin watched very carefully, and he said, he said, that was very interesting. And I smugly said, yes, yes, wasn't it? Very, quite pleased. And he said, just one question. He said, where was the drama in that? And I said, there wasn't any. And so that moment really defined the rest of my learning about drama, much of which was from Gavin. So I realized that what I was doing, it might have been very active and enjoyable for the kids doing all sorts of stuff, but it had nothing to do with what drama could be. So then I was lucky enough to get a place on his MA course in Durham, where I went on to learn so much more. And he was so generous with his time, with his ideas. He sometimes looks in photographs and so on rather stern, but actually he was very funny, and he was very witty in a dry kind of way. And he was just, I think, a very fine teacher, and he never, apart from that one moment, perhaps made you feel stupid. But or if it, you made mistakes, which of course we all did, he turned it into something amusing. And so he did the same with the kids he was teaching. If you saw, he would teach classes for us to watch. And there again, if the kids did something that sort of didn't seem to be appropriate, he kind of, like Dorothy, he found a way to make that part of the work. And I'm sure other people have similar memories of him. I remember him being in Australia and quite prepared to be photographed draped in a huge kind of boa constrictor thing. So even that, he was never pompous. He was never, I'm too important for this kind of silliness. Not at all. He was just so natural and so just so generous in every aspect of his life, I think.
Thank you so much, Cecily. And that was really nice way of starting this this commemoration. And I'd pass the ball on to David Davis. Would you continue, please, David, with
Thanks,
your
Adam. Yes.
memories?
Gavin Bolton was my teacher, mentor, and friend. And it's in this latter role of friend that I'd like to share some personal memories of time spent with Gavin. I'm very conscious that while we're grieving such a great loss, we're also celebrating a life lived to the full by someone who loved life and aimed to live it to the full. I want to highlight Gavin's great sociability, as you were doing, Cecily, and zest for life, always searching for new experiences. He was always interested in meeting people and hearing their stories. In fact, I first got to know Gavin on a personal level some 57 years ago over a pint of beer. As a young teacher, I was on Gavin's part-time advanced diploma course. He would come into schools to observe his students. After one such visit to observe my teaching, he invited me to have a drink with him in my lunch break at a local pub. Yes, can you believe it? In 1969, it was quite acceptable to have an hour's lunch break and go for a pint. That pint with Gavin was the start of a friendship I feel so privileged to have had. We taught different 6-week summer school courses at the same time for a number of years at the same universities, mainly at Toronto University and one at Northwestern University in Chicago, near Chicago. We shared guest tutor accommodation, so we also had great social times together. While at Toronto University, we would finish teaching Friday lunchtime and take a flight to New York for the weekend, as you do, and have great adventures together. One of his ex-students who lived in Manhattan moved out and gave us the use of her apartment. On one of our trips, at about the time of the bicentennial celebrations, which must have been about 1976, Gavin was anxious to join the mass carnival parade through Manhattan. We walked everywhere we could. It was so enjoyable if you don't mind the crowds. And Gavin really enjoyed soaking up the atmosphere. We had to walk through the Italian district, and the crowds were packed so tight that we couldn't move. They were gathering for their own district celebrations. Gavin was getting increasingly anxious the longer we were held up. We would miss the carnival parade, and then the crowds suddenly parted, and a group of men in grey suits appeared, and everyone fell back. "Mafia," Gavin muttered to me. We were held up at a road junction, and the police held back the traffic to allow the group to cross over. Before I knew what had happened, Gavin just joined in the end of the line of men and used the opportunity to make easy progress through the crowds. Now you have to imagine Gavin in longish khaki shorts, polo shirt and sandals, tagging on to the end of the mafia gang in their grey suits. It was a sight to behold, but typical Gavin somehow. I didn't dare, and we had to join up later on. I found out from those around me that they were the local church wardens on their way to start the local celebrations. On another occasion, we'd been to an off-Broadway theatre production. We left about 10 at night, The street was dimly lit. All we could sense were the very tall buildings on both sides of the street. It was completely isolated. No one walked at that time of night along these streets. Suddenly, we heard a faint whistle in the distance. And my whistle is hopeless, but it was something like this. It was the whistle from West Side Story, which had been enormously popular in the recent past. Gangs, muttered Gavin. There could be trouble ahead. We quickened our pace. The whistle came again, and each time louder and closer. Gavin and I actually linked arms and increased our pace again until we were almost running. There was nothing else we could do but try to brave it out. Then out of the semi-darkness, on the other side of the road, appeared a young boy of about 10 or so. He was just enjoying making his whistle echo off the tall buildings. We relaxed and laughed at ourselves. We had numerous silly adventures like these, but it was all part of the love Gavin had of making new experiences. And I'll finish with one more. One evening, on the first evening of our first trip to New York together, we were walking through Times Square. It was a hot, humid evening, and the streets were packed. As we walked along, a young woman coming towards us said to Gavin, "You're going out?" Gavin, in his best, most courteous British way, answered, "Yes, thank you. We're having a lovely walk, enjoying every minute. Thank you for asking." It was only after repeated occasions when young women asked us the same question, "You going out?" as we walked along, that we finally got the picture. Gavin had such a great zest for new experiences. We miss you, Gavin.
Thank you, David. Thank you for those personal memories. It was really great to hear them. And the side of Gavin I've never heard about, so it was lovely to hear that. Thank you. Ruken, I don't want to shock you into speaking, but you said you would be happy to share some thoughts, and that would be really nice to hear some of them.
Okay, thank you, Adam. When I was a student in UCE, under the supervision of Dr. David Davis, I remember it was a first lesson with Gavin Bolton. And it was really different to me because he said to us we need to start to drama lessons or drama sessions with individual exercises or individual improvisations. I was shocked because we tend to be relax in group in Turkey. It's culturally different, I think. And he said in every person's emotions and participation and opening himself or herself is so important, and it is so important to start or to begin as a person. And he influenced me to my drama workshops in Turkey when I back to Turkey. And I'm starting with Gavin's way as well. Thanks to Gavin's legacy and David Davis. Thank you. That's what I say.
Thank you so much, Ruken. Good to hear that memory and that legacy. Let's pass the baton on to China, Shaoxi. If you're happy to share, I know it's 1 o'clock at night there, but you're still fairly awake, so.
Early. Thanks, Adam. Hi, everyone. I've never met Gavin. I probably first heard about him around 2009. And so at the time, I was a very confused, immature, somewhat arrogant theatre trained performance studies enthusiast, just trying to understand what was going on in this field called drama education, and quite possibly sneer at drama education for not being the high art of theatre. In my mind, I perhaps even siding with Hornbrook, thinking that the emergent drama education scene in the Chinese-speaking world has lost its dramatic to the educational. It was only when I started reading Bolton and perhaps begun to understand him from perspective less filtered through Heathcote's later development that I started to rethink the claim that he's what merely emphasized the limited notion of drama as a learning medium. Bolton always saw drama as an art form in its own right, and this was neither to limit the place of theatre within drama, nor to ignore the complex relationship between children's play and, say, an actor's acting behavior. I remember it taking me a long time to, after studying his historical account on acting behavior, to really grasp his careful consideration of the dramatic playing and the performing modes. I particularly remember reading Drama in Education and TIE, a comparison, and thinking this should be required reading for all theatre makers. So in the article, the question of mode, whether it's process orientated or performance orientated or skill orientated, widened my understanding not only of drama and theatre, but also of myself as a human being, especially the being part. This idea that we're making it happen so that it can happen to us spoke to something that had troubled me throughout my upbringing. Growing up, I often felt that I had one eye on whatever situation I was in, but often also troubled by that because I'm not fully in any situation either. So I'm constantly moving between what Bolton would say, what identifies the three components of dramatic playing: the agent, the recipient, and the rules. Growing up in China, negotiating the degree of autonomy available to children and young people is a significant question. So for me, being able to play dramatically carries a political imperativeness, both for the drama teacher, the adults and children and young people. So reading Bolton and researching and studying him was eye-opening in many, many ways. So it not only equipped me my theoretical armor in drama and theatre, but also deepened my understanding of children and young people. His free and imaginative plans and his humor, which you can clearly read through his words, and his deeply thoughtful structure and rigorous writing have always been a place I return to whenever I'm confused or lacking ideas or simply just really tired. And I'm immensely grateful for his teaching, even though I've never met him, and continue to feel honored that through his teaching every year in our summer school here in Beijing and Shenzhen and Hangzhou, hundreds of drama teachers from Chinese-speaking world would find a small step forward with his ethos, not only when to adapt to the world, but also, more importantly, when not to. Thank you.
Thank you, Saoirse. That was taking us to a more theoretical plane related to Bolton's work. And I don't know, Kate, Katafiasz, if I can invite you to continue, step on from there.
That's very apropos because you're talking about when to do things and when not to do things, Saoirse. And I was very lucky to be taught by Gavin. I can't say I knew him, but on David's PGCE course, Gavin taught us several times. And one time he was trying out his ideas on constraints, when to do things, when not to do things. And we had 4 or 5 different types of constraint: social, physical, emotional, etc. And we had this kind of structured argument in pairs, and we tried the same argument with a different constraint. So one was a physical constraint. You couldn't get up and thump the person because you had a broken leg. Or you couldn't quarrel. You couldn't shout at the person because your sick mother was asleep upstairs. Or you couldn't, I can't remember the rest of them. But very interestingly, he got us to think about it in terms of how each constraint made you connect in a different way to the situation and the role. And so we noticed that for some people, shouting made you feel very emotionally connected to the role. And for other people, not being able to shout made you feel very connected to the role. And it was recently, I was writing something on Dorothy's conventions, and I realized that her 33 conventions for dramatic action are constraints, and I hadn't seen them as such. And I realized that there's some thread going through there for drama, that constraint is a sort of essential feature of drama. I think quite a lot too about Edward Bond, and he always wrote about or talked about the theatre of Dionysus, which constrains its audience not to speak and its stage not to look. So it made me think that maybe constraints are something really fundamental about drama, about generating that intersubjective space that we all try to do when we use role or we enter a dramatic situation. Even though we're in a classroom and we're not in a theatre, we're still using those rules, as you say, in an interesting way. And it was very useful to think about Gavin because I haven't thought enough about him. I think about Dorothy and I think about Edward a lot, and it made me think, how interesting Gavin's practice is and was, and how lucky we were to experience it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kate. Just chipping in with my bit here. I mean, a lot of things from Gavin have been a great influence on my work and thinking. But if I need to pinpoint one specific element, it's his well-known drama lesson on Salem, based on the Arthur Miller play. And I think when I read that example, also in Cecily's book, but also in Acting in Classroom Drama, and the detail of that, that specific way of building role that Gavin uses there, of actually giving a structure of making a painting and getting the family to set up there, but giving them something to hide as well, and the complexity of that task, and then engaging with them through him stepping into role, so it be teacher in role, and the whole complexity of that task was a real eye opener for me about how actually the art form comes to life in practice, and it's very much related to the constraints of the art form and holding that and condensing it, and the condensing of meaning and meaning making, creating meaning collectively, and that's all the setup to then go into full role and take part in the improvisation. So I remember that this little build up of practice of creating that context, building the role, as a really beautiful example of practice, which I think was important for me, because before that I had primarily heard of Gavin Bolton as a theorist and all his theoretical framework. So that's my bit, and I would invite David Allen to continue. David?
Thanks, Adam. I'd like to take us back to 1985, and a phrase that Gavin said, which stays with me in my work, which is opening doors. And in 1985, I'd recently graduated from Dave Davis's PGCE course at what was Birmingham City Polytechnic. And Dave did an interview with Gavin in 1985 when he said that drama can open doors and, quote, present different problems and different opportunities for learning, but individuals in the class will all respond differently. And Dorothy herself said something similar. She said, the keys are given, but we don't know which door the children will go through. In working with children, we give them the keys to start to cope, but we don't know what will be behind the door they find in that sense of their understanding. So yes, this idea of opening doors stays with me. And in 1985, I heard Gavin give a keynote speech entitled Teacher in Role and Teacher Power at the Positive Images Conference. I think Dave might have been there, certainly I know Jonothan was there. And Gavin argued that most of the time in our schools, the pupil is demonstrating his or her knowledge or skill to the teacher, and the teacher is the source of knowledge who will correct the child's knowledge. And Gavin suggested that in drama, the use of teacher in role in particular makes possible a shift in the usual power relationship between teacher and pupil, an opportunity unequaled in the rest of the curriculum for negotiation of power. And he referred to recent comments at that time by Baroness Warnock, who had accused some teachers of political indoctrination. And he said that drama cannot indoctrinate. It can only ask questions. Teachers can open doors, but they cannot push the children through. It won't work. Now, in the discussion that followed this talk, the first person to stand was David Hornbrook, who was making waves at that time with his attacks on Dorothy and Gavin. So this was quite a dramatic moment there. He stood up, and this is my paraphrased record from my diary of the time of the exchange. And Hornbrook argued for a much more politically interventionist role for the teacher. He said, I want children's views to be changed. I am a political teacher. I think drama is a very effective way to intervene in their thinking. Learning doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from teaching. Now, one danger in this position to me seems to be that he was reaffirming the authority of the teacher as the one who knows. He was trying to push people through doors. As one audience member put it at the event, if you try to impart your views, you only confirm the traditional teacher-pupil relationship. Now, there's a video, which would be great for us to share online, in fact, of MA students with Gavin at UCE in 1991, and there he expands on this idea of opening doors. He says, one of the problems I've landed myself with in the past is, because I've talked about drama as learning, that I've tended to assume that assessment could only relate to learning outcomes. And this is fine to a limited extent, but most of the important learning outcomes are so difficult to identify and are so linked so clearly with a time sequence that a teacher is often in a position of not being able to be explicit about what has been learned. And he noted that learning of the kind that I'm interested in, conceptual learning, is to do with making connections. And you just do not know when that is going to occur. So he said, there are going to be too many times when you're going to say, what have they learned? And the answer has to be, I sense that something's happened, but I honestly do not know what they have learned. Now, in an age of targets and measurable outcomes, It's so refreshing to hear a teacher acknowledging that we can never be sure what individuals will take away from the work. We cannot know exactly what they've learned. And Gavin recognised that this position could leave him open to accusations of vagueness, but as he told Davis, I think what I was trying to describe precisely was the kind of door I was opening. I still think one can be fairly precise in describing that door and setting out with some degree of specificity the kind of area that I was inviting them to engage with. And this seems to me the difference between the teacher artist and the teacher technician. The teacher technician sets learning outcomes, tries to push people through doors. The teacher artist opens them. And through his books, his workshops, and his talks, Gavin certainly opened many doors for me personally, and I think for all of us in the drama and education world. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That really made me think about the responsibility that's given or not given to the students, participants, and how that gesture of opening the door is also giving responsibility to participants to take what they want or what they need, or not take what they want or not need, perhaps. Thank you so much. Sorrel, would you be happy to continue, please?
Yes, thank you, Adam. Hi, I'm speaking as myself, a drama teacher of 30 plus years, but also as the chair of NATD, the National Association for Teaching of Drama, which Gavin was an honorary life member of and contributed over the years to our journal and to our conferences. And most recently, at the end of 2024, he sent a message to a conference we were doing that was looking at being in role, and in particular focusing on his idea of metaxis, which David very kindly read out for us. And it was a really amazing moment that we had him in the room with us, we had David in the room with us, we had all the teachers that David had taught, and it was quite a sort of special moment, that history of and the development of drama in education kind of just being there in front of us. So I starting to thinking about Gavin, his work is just so embedded in my practice that sometimes I don't know where it begins and ends. It just is my practice, I think. And I think, oh, where did that come from? Where do I know that from? Which book was it in? His book, Towards the Theory of Drama in Education, which I think is the first book he ever wrote, was the first bit of drama and education theory that I ever read. I was a very young, very naive actor teacher in a theatre and education company in Worcester, and I just kind of wanted to understand more about what we were doing in school. And I got this kind of weird sense that, you know, drama, working with these young people, it was doing something, but I wasn't really quite sure what it was. And one of the company members gave me this book to read, and it was just like my brain exploded. It was incredible. It was like, you know, entering a whole new world. And I think it was probably from that then made me feel, actually, I think I want to be a drama teacher. I think I want to learn more about drama in education in a school, and I want to learn more about Gavin. And then by that time, I'd also kind of been led down that path towards Dorothy's work as well. And so obviously there was only one place I was going to go, and that was to David's PGCE. I wasn't going to go anywhere else. If I didn't get a place on that PGCE, I probably wouldn't have been a drama teacher. And again, I didn't know this because, again, his practice is so kind of embedded in what I do. But I was on started David's course in 1992, and I didn't realise, but that was the year that this book was published, New Perspectives on Classroom Drama. And David obviously pointed us towards this book, and I think it probably safe to say it became the Bible of the course. And I think this is the first place where I've encountered Gavin's idea of metaxis. And metaxis, I think, it's one of those things that just is so wrapped into everything I do. It's such a I don't want to say it's a simple way of looking at it, because it isn't. It's deeply complex, but it just makes drama make sense for me, and makes the power of drama in education make sense. Because I think whatever you're doing in the drama practice, I'm sure you all know what metaxis is. It's this idea of this dual world, that we are both in the world of the fiction and in the world in which we exist. And it doesn't matter what you're asking young people to do, I think. Whether you're asking them to create the drama themselves in a devising context, whether you're asking them to be part of a process drama, to work in role alongside you as teacher in role, whether you're asking them to watch a piece of theatre, whether you're asking them to perform a wonderful piece of theatre that's been written by an existing playwright. It doesn't matter. We are existing in those two worlds. We always will be. And that gives us, as the participants, as the viewers, as the creators, the means to be able and the opportunity to interrogate our world and the world of the fiction, to question it, to allow it to question us, to allow it to disturb us, and to give us a kind of a sense and an understanding of who we are in the world. And I was really struck with what Scheewe said, that it becomes you knowing about yourself as much as anything else, as much as you knowing about the world. And I like what you just said there, David, that the opening doors, I'd forgotten that is what he says. And that is what we are doing. We are opening doors with, and that's very important, with and for the young people. And we're enabling them to open those doors. That's the really important thing. So Metaxas was the centre of the conference we did, which David put David brought the message from Gavin, and it was incredible to have his work there, as so current and relevant to everything that we're doing. And that's something that I don't even know if this is the first time he wrote about it, but in 1992. And when I wrote to Gavin's family on behalf of NATD to express our condolences, I said to them that his work and the way of working that he has offered us, I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of children, of young people, of teachers it has touched and enabled to have a real understanding of themselves and of the world in which we live. And for that, we thank Gavin profoundly and deeply. He has given us such an extraordinary and life-changing way of working, and he will be deeply missed.
Thank you so much, Sorrel. Thank you for also speaking for the NATD community. It's great. Manfred, I don't know if your camera is switched off, but if you're around, yes. Can I pass the possibility, the microphone to you?
Sure. And hello, everyone. It was towards the end of the 1980s that I developed a special interest in drama and education and set out to research the potential role of drama in the teaching and learning of foreign languages. At the time, I came across Gavin Bolton's publications, his seminal text Towards a Theory of Drama and Education, and later texts had a strong impact on me. In the early 1990s, I took part in a workshop led by Gavin at the University of Eichstätt in Germany. Seeing Gavin Bolton in action was a very memorable experience. I was most impressed by how very concentrated, calm, and encouraging he was, and especially how eager he was to engage the participants in reflection. I remember I asked him a perhaps naive question that he politely said he needed to think about a bit more. The question was, drama always seems to be about a conflict of some kind, about human struggles. Do you think drama can be about happiness? However, I also asked him, would he perhaps contribute to a planned book publication entitled Towards Drama as a Method in the Foreign Language Classroom? He said, yes. And Peter Shaw and I, as editors, were delighted. Gavin's contribution was entitled A Brief History of Classroom Drama, British and Other English-Speaking Influences. Let me read just a few lines from the abstract. Language teaching of all kinds is taken as a typical illustration of how the methodological potential of drama has come to be utilized in subjects beyond drama itself. The article concludes by proposing a series of challenging open questions. Questions that must be grappled with and solved if drama is to be employed in a conscious, reflected manner as a method of language teaching. Typical Gavin Bolton. Putting questions to the readers so that they think things through for themselves more. I met Gavin again in 1998 at a memorandum symposium at Durham University, organized by Mike Byram and Mike Fleming, together with his esteemed colleague and friend Dorothy Heathcote. He gave a workshop on teaching culture through drama. The workshop focused on how drama can help to deconstruct cultural stereotypes. In 2007, Tolwer-Evans and I founded Scenario, a journal with an explicit focus on drama in second language education. Both Tolwer-Evans, my trusted friend and colleague, and I remain very grateful to Gavin Bolton, as his writings have had a very strong impact on us, on many others in the Scenario community, and many others in the field of second language education. The international drama and theatre education community has indeed lost one of its most influential voices. Colleagues in the Scenario community and beyond know that Tolwer-Evans, professor at the University of Indiana, Bloomington, helped to shape the field of drama and second language education like few others. I remember that around 15 or so years ago, she met with Dorothy Heathcote and Gavin Bolton. I'm at the moment a bit under shock because I've just been informed that Susanne very unexpectedly passed away last weekend. It is so very sad to see those who have been an inspiration to us leave. Let's try and do our best to carry their amazing legacy forward. Perhaps it is appropriate to conclude with a few lines from a theatre play entitled Cork's World Theatre. En la comedia humana, toda la vida es una entrada, una salida. Coming off, coming on, birth and grave song. Like on the tower clock, like the stars in their course, like all that nature has in stock, in the coming is a going, in the going is a coming, in the going is a coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manfred, and thanks for sharing also the sad news about Susanne. Theo Breyer asked me to share her apologies for not being here, and she just sent a few notes talking about acting in classroom drama, expanding her understanding of the legacy that inspires our work, and Bolton introducing her to so many radical practitioners like Marjorie Horde. I don't know if I pronounce her name correctly, and it really helped getting to know this wider picture, getting to know these practitioners really helped Theo to understand her own work as well much better, and this is what the thought she would have shared if she would have been able to join us today. And Gustav, I don't know if Gustav is here. I can't see his name, so I don't know if he's here, but he's noted he might share some idea. I can't see him, so I'd just like to open the floor and invite those of you who would like to share some thoughts about Gavin to share some ideas. Jonothan, I don't know if I can invite you to share your thoughts, and then I'm really looking forward to hearing from others as well.
Well, I wasn't expecting to, and there've been such thoughtful, really such thoughtful contributions made so far. I mean, I would go back to Cecily and just simply say that if it hadn't been for Gavin, well, Gavin and Cecily, to be fair, and what they learnt off each other and what they both taught. My first encounter with Gavin was through a videotape. Videotape of a grainy black and white VHS videotape of a workshop that he did with a group of 10-year-olds called The Outlaws, which was produced by the Tape and Drama Centre. And I put this video on, and my life changed. And it was really interesting when we were in COVID and we were questioning whether it was ever possible to support teachers through digital means. Way back in 1979, that had been my complete entry point. So, you know, that changed my life, and his work always made more sense to me than any other practitioners, and I was helped by people on the screen to make full sense of that. And I think what I appreciated was that he understood theatre. He understood that what we were doing was theatre. You know, that was seamless, and that was so important for me in the direction in which I've taken. And David's talked about constraints, and certainly that was really important, the notion of creative constraints, you know, on the development of the conventions, for instance. But so was tension. You know, I remember Gavin saying that tension was the mainspring of drama. You know, and without tension, there is nothing. And that, well, you know, what is the tension? And that list of tensions that he provided us with, you know, that so drove the work, you know, was also really, really important. And then I wasn't as close as people who've spoken so far. Well, I wasn't that close, but there was some memorable. I remember being on a train with him going to do a workshop somewhere, and I went and bought sandwiches from the restaurant bar, the whatever bar, and came back. And he said, "Did you get a receipt?" No, Gavin, I'm just having my lunch. I'm just getting something. Always get receipts, even if it's just for a packet of crisps. Get your receipts and put your receipts in. You know, they owe you for what you're doing. You do that. And then the other bit of advice that he gave to me when he heard that I was going to Warwick was, as soon as you get there, start an MA, an International Masters in Drama and Education. And if he hadn't said that, you know, we probably had 300, 350, 400 teachers pass through that MA and survived because we initiated that MA against all the uncertainties and the shocks that came to the UK system. So, you know, for those simple reasons, and at a greater distance than others, and I appreciate the work people have done to really try and understand what his theory and practice was about. But at key moments in my life, he would, you know, I wouldn't be who I am professionally. I wouldn't be who I am in theatre. I wouldn't be who I am in terms of whatever, you know, I may have contributed without Gavin, and without Cecily, without those who learned from Gavin as well. So, you know, I owe tributes to the people on the screen as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm just opening the floor. Is anyone? Would anyone like to share some thoughts, some memories? Bobby, Kostas, Iona, Stig. Iona, go on. Just switch your microphone on.
Yeah, sorry. Just a brief, really. I first come across Gavin at a skipped conference. I hadn't read any of his work. I'd come across the name, and you know, and he gave a keynote address called "Imagining the Real." Now, just to echo what a lot of people have said, one of the things that about it was so funny, and this article, the article is in a Skip journal, and it really does need to get the keynote really does need to get typed up and put out as well. But the thing that really then, you know, that really reached me or sparked off for me or triggered for me was the notion of imagining the real. And that kind of all of a sudden, you know, you kind of go, oh, right, yeah, of course, yeah. And then later, and then I'm sort of reading Vygotsky and things like that, and then you go, oh, I see, yes, I see the relationship between what Vygotsky was saying and then how Gavin has developed that in, you know, that theory in terms of what he does in the classroom. And then, of course, then there was a kind of resonance with the work that Bond was doing about the imagination. And then the kind of whole notion of metaxis. So all of these things are kind of developments of and interpretations of, you know, the relationship between, if you like, the fictional world of the drama and why we do it as human beings. So I don't know. I just wanted to say that really. It kind of went to a for me, just that very title went to the kind of real heart, the core of the human practice of drama. And you know, and I read Gavin a lot now, and I've just read his selected writings and connected it back to what you've been doing on Site B with, you know, the question of feelings. There's a whole there's 3 essays about emotion in drama, and actually you go back to them and you go, oh wow, yeah, actually that clarifies a lot for me. So yeah, no, just just pay my respects to the man.
Thank you, Bobby. Iona was about to switch her microphone on.
Yes, I've switched it on. Thank you. It's been lovely to hear all these memories. And my memory of Gavin, I mean, when I read Drama for Learning, I just thought he asked such brave questions of Dorothy, which I think a lot of us almost didn't. And I felt I could identify, I think you could identify Gavin with teachers, really, with teachers who wondered about things. And he would ask the questions, perhaps, that we were perhaps reluctant to ask. And I remember one session when he ran a session with us quite some years back. And it was about Cinderella. It was the story of Cinderella. And he was so, I thought, so structured. I think what he brought to the work for me was great clarity, really. I was so inspired by Dorothy's work, and still am, of course. But I think Gavin brought some clarity that I was searching for in that. So I think that's why they were a very good team. And I think when he did the Cinderella thing, it was like so rich. And I remember him asking us to create these tableaus. And he had this beautiful narration, which brought so much to it. He was a real artist in a sense. And we had a tableau of when Cinderella was very happy. And then he said something like, and then the mother died. And we transformed this tableau into something different. And he explored with us, you know, the meanings behind that tale. And so he got us really to think about what could this really be about, and got into the depth of it. You know, was it about parenting? Was it about childhood? What, you know, so there were huge questions. And what I loved about his work is that it was just the clarity. It was so well structured and so thought through, which helped us see things that we would otherwise may not see. And I think that's what I would be I was very grateful to him for that, because also he brought a distance, from my mind anyway, to very sensitive issues that this Cinderella context explored. And I thought that was the way to do it, really. It was so rich, and He was always so well prepared and so well thought through. He was a great thinker and a lovely, lovely man, a lovely gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iona. Anyone else would like to come in on that?
Well, I guess maybe I'll chip in there if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Bobby, we're talking generally about feelings there, which I think are a very important thing to explore through drama. What are feelings? How do we name them? How does one person feel about a thing, and how does another person feel about a thing? There could be different interpretations. And I remember I was just looking over my thesis, which Manfred Scheewe was an external examiner on, and I was just going through some of the things that I wrote about Bolton in it. I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I think this comes up a lot, I think, because the content of drama, this is from Towards the Theory in Drama and Education, children may have their understandings of the world clarified or modified, and they may gain skills in social interaction, which include the ability to communicate their understandings and feelings. And my theory, my thesis was about how can we explore bullying in the classroom. And when it came to talking about feelings around bullying, it was extremely hard for the children at first to actually name their feelings, to say what they are. But the play of drama, and saying like, okay, let's do a drama around exclusion bullying or name calling, and how that might make people feel, or how do you think that person feels about it? How do you feel about it if it's happening to you? All these things are very valuable in exploring it. And I think that's really like one of the things that Bolton has touched upon in his writings a lot. And I think having people gain knowledge about how they are in the world, how they act in the world, how they come to know themselves, how they come to understand the feelings of others and appreciate that this is another human being. I'm not living in a solipsistic universe, that this is another human being that has feelings that I need to respect and maybe learn to develop empathy for, because young children may not have developed empathy. So learning to develop empathy, I think, is a big one with drama. And I think a big thing that Gavin was promoting and encouraging teachers to get kids to talk about what they were doing and to explore it through communication, through metaxas. And so I found him very influential and very helpful in crafting my work.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Cam was just signing he would be happy to share something. Go on, Cam.
Yeah, here I am. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for gathering us, Adam. Again, offering condolences from BC, Victoria, BC, where Gavin left his mark. Like many here, I didn't know him personally or directly, but definitely knew him through his work and through that mark that he left. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, my was Juliana Saxton. I think Gavin covered a year here at UVic for Juliana. So through my teaching career here in ESL at UVic, I'm often hearing teachers that were very, very impressed with that class that he taught here and remembered him very fondly. I'm seeing some of my mentors here, Cecily and Jonothan. I was your student in 1998 at the IDERI, and that put me on the way to this great career of using drama, storytelling. One thing that Juliana, her homage, I think, to Gavin in all of her courses was SDD, which of course is sit-down drama. And I think I'm right in saying that was something Gavin introduced, I think, in a prison where people had less theater experience, or if any. And so she would teach us, in a circle, just sharing a story that we would all start together, and she would help shape with us. The title always caught our attention because SDD sounded a little bit like STD. So we always shared our undivided attention with that topic. And I've used it today with my foreign language students, just where are we? What's the beginning of the story? And it has such a a nice shape to follow. So I just, yeah, on behalf of Juliana, Carol, say hello to everybody, and I offer condolences to Gavin's family, and it's just really great to be here and hear all these stories. Thank you. And the bag still has not arrived from the airport, but I'm still waiting.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else joining in?
Maybe a voice from Norway.
Oh, Stig, please.
I hear very many of the same thoughts as people before have expressed concerning his importance in the field, but also personally. I met him already in the 70s. There was a row of international conferences convened by IATA. Actually, that's where I first met Cecily as well. And there was one in Germany, and they continued into Austria. And later, Gavin, we invited Gavin to Norway and came to Bergen, and we are quite proud that quite early, already 1981, 2 years after the original, we had his book translated. And it was a pleasure to work with Gavin on that translation, because it really gave me some theoretical insights and stimulations that I wasn't aware of properly at that time. And coming from theater studies, the theory part of what we are doing has been important to me. But later, when we used to take our students to England, to Newcastle, for almost a 10-year period, we came to Newcastle every year and met Gavin and Dorothy. We learned in practice so much from him, and I also think I can say with confidence that his thoughts, his reflections have influenced a lot of teacher education curricula in the world, definitely in Norway and the other Nordic countries. So his legacy lives on, and I think he was a great pioneer, but he is still worth reading and looking into. So thank you for having this video meeting, Adam.
Thank you, Stig. I think just at that point, when you're saying he's still worth reading, I just love to go back to his the essential writings and his keynote titled "Piss on His Face." Whenever I'm feeling a bit low about my own work, I really enjoy reading that and recognizing the irony with which he talks about his own when things go pear-shaped and he's one of the greatest pioneers in drama, and he's still he's so able to talk about that and share the problems he's having. And I think that's been another thing that has been a big influence on me of how I look at my own work and how much I allow myself to take it apart and critique my own work. I think that's been a real influence on me, and I think that's important in developing the work as well. Well, I see Chris has just joined us, and there are a few people here who perhaps don't want to speak, but maybe there are still some who would like to share some thoughts. If you do, then this is your last chance to sign that to me and switch your microphone on. Katrine?
Yeah, thank you so much for hearing all these memories and honoring Gavin's legacy. I just want to say, add two things. So I think it was in 2013, we were at the Dorothy Heathcote Reconsidered conference in London, and he was giving a keynote, and he was using the metaphor of gardening because Dorothy Heathcote was very into gardening, and he said, "We need to dig deeper." And that was a very important phrase, I think, that we need to go deeper, not just touch the surface. So that was one thing. And then this, that we need substance in drama, not just doing a lot of exercises, but that it is about something and it goes deep. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrine. Kostas, please.
Okay, I wasn't planning to talk. I was prepared myself to listen to other people. And I was right, basically. That was really rich, very interesting experiences. I'm afraid I met Gavin Bolton once in a conference workshop. It was a nice, very nice workshop, basically. But I think I need to share my experience through his books, his writings. I remember when I started my master's with David Davis in UCE back in 1996. I came from Greece, where I had like 3 years of theater games training, and I thought that would be very easy master for me to do, since I know already a lot of stuff from Greece, and it was a huge shock to me. The first 3 months, I couldn't navigate anywhere. I couldn't understand anything of what was happening in the course. It was completely different. And 3 months later, I was ready to give up. One of the things that kept me, well, the first thing was David Davis. I went to him and I grabbed him like that. I said, I'm going to quit. I'm going to leave. Yeah, I don't understand anything. And he said, well, please wait for another month. And if this continues, then we'll talk again. The problem was that I was trying to understand all these things. Someone told me there in the UK that the most important person is Dorothy Heathcote. Read her books. So I started reading her books, and I didn't understand a word, nothing. It was so confusing. One article, one page worse than the next one, and so on and so on. And then I gave up with Dorothy Heathcote. I don't know if I still understand everything she said, but anyway, I started reading Gavin Bolton instead, the second major theorist I've started reading. And I remember I read about constraints, and I realized that actually drama is the art of delay, of delaying. This is what Bolton was saying. And I think that made a click to me. I think I started realizing, understanding what is drama about. And I think it's still so contemporary. We still need delaying action in our drama, especially today, of what is happening around us. The social context is such and such that asks for a delay in order to understand more, maybe experience more, feel more, go in depth, see who we are, what is the world we're living in. And I think this is the magic word that Bolton, that came stuck in my mind, it still is in my mind, delaying action. And I think what side B is trying to do actually is following similar direction by slowing down time. I think this is a very interesting term. very interesting idea, way of working, which needs to be revisited and cultivated more.